Now let's go 6, 7, and 8. Just the way that that first one is bending over, just like so, makes it look like you need to put another one in, but in actual fact that's why I'm having you count. So now let's slip stitch in, so you have your 8 coming through, and voila, there's your flat spot again. So let's just cast off on this. So we're just going to trim the material over the hand like I normally do, and just going to pull through. And if you feel more comfortable tying it, I don't ever really tie it, but because I know that I'm going to work this into a blanket, what I do is that I just put it over the top, just like so, and I throw it back over. And so what's going to happen is that when I go to sew these all together, that this straggler here is actually going to get caught within the sewing, therefore never come loose. So it all depends what you're using it for. This is one of the techniques. It's called weaving, and when this is part of the V, so I would tend normally to go around that twice just to let it stretch a bit and then come through. So there you go. So you can see there you now have all 8 sides, just like the one in the pattern. Now the one in the background was really thick yarn. This is a 4-ply Bernat. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to do this little square really quickly. And so if you're feeling like really adventurous, now also too, see the center point? That would look amazing if the center was a different color, because this here is kind of blocking this, so you could actually have like almost a sun or anything. You can change your colors at any time. Don't be limited to what you see on my screen, and you'll notice that both sides of this pattern look completely different. So you'll have to decide when you're going to sew these together on what side that you prefer over the other. So let's go and start the little square. So this is the bonus video if you want to do an Afghan and attach it with little squares. Let's begin our slip knot. And again, this is compliments of AllFreeCrochet and Mikey's Mail. So we're just going to slip your slip knot on, and now let's count 3. So this does not count as 1. So let's grab the material. 1, 2, and 3. And do you notice my hand never left the actual starting point, because I don't like to let that go because I know exactly where the stitch is. So let's this counts as 1 double crochet, so we're just going to grab the material and going into the very starting stitch, which is the slip stitch, grabbing the material, pulling it through, pull through 2 and 2, and now we want to have clusters of 3, so this is now considered 1 and 2, and let's go in again to the same stitch because we're going to work our way around a circle. So this is 3. So now we want to turn a corner, just like you see there, okay, or just like you see over there, you're turning a corner, and every time you turn a corner in a granny square, it's 2. So 1 and 2, and now let's go back into the center point again, the very first stitch, and we're going to put 3 more double crochets in a row. And you can just see that I've just naturally done it without telling you, is that I want to keep the straggler in control and caught. So when I go to stick my hook in, I want to make sure that my straggler is laying on top of the hook. Therefore, when this material comes around, it actually secures it into the position so that I can safely cut it later, because whatever's hanging left out of the square is far beyond where it was tied. So let's turn another corner, so 1 and 2. There's also granny square tutorials available on Mikey's Mail and AllFreeCrochet.com, even AllFreeCrochet YouTube site as well. So there's the 3 corners. Okay, so now we've got to go one more, so 1 and 2, whoops, that was 1 and 2, and going into the center spot again trapping that straggler into position. Get used to doing that. It's a really great way of hiding your starting points of your yarn, and very easy technique. And now we have all sides created, but we don't really, because we have this gap, this one, and this one. This one's missing because we have the chain 2. So 1 and 2, and now let's slip stitch into the very top of the first stitch available. So I'm just gonna, what I'm gonna do now, you can see this hanging out, just grabbing your scissors, just trimming it. Oh, now it's gone. And voila, you'll never see that again. And now let's begin our next step. So this is 1 revolution. This is only 2 revolutions, ladies and gentlemen, what you see here. So this is a really easy way of putting something in between all your octagons. So continuing along, so let's chain up 3. So 1, 2, and 3. Now this, just like the gapping that we did in the center, and when we moved up a level, this is acting as the same way. This is actually supposed to be inside of this gap here. But instead, what we're going to do is grab the material and going in to that gap, so just going backward into that gap, and you're going to double crochet 2 times. So that chaining up of 1 counted as 3. So you got 1, 2, and 3. So now we want to jump over. I always call this the runway when you're going across the flat top of a square. So it's jump over by chaining 1 and then going in, and we're going to do another 3 double crochets right in a row again, right on that same gap. And now we want to turn the corner, so 1 and 2. We always chain 2, and now going back into the corner again, that same corner, to create the corner. Oh man, I'm sounding confusing. And so we just want to continue. You can see that corner was created, and now we're in the runway again. So let's chain 1. So you chain 1 every time you're in the runway, and chaining 2 every time you turn a corner. So that's again 3 double crochets for the first side of the corner. Okay, chaining 2 because you're turning 1 and 2, and now going into the same corner again. So I have figured out the mathematics that, remember how we had 8 on the actual sides? Well, you're actually going to have 8 here as well. So when you look at it here, you have 6 right in the middle. Okay, so you have 6 and 6. So you then have a gap and a gap, so that will equal your 8. So that's what I've kind of figured that out to be. So let's go into the next corner. I should have probably waited before I told you that, but that's the whole reasoning behind my calculations on that. You basically have to end up with the same numbers of stitches, or you're not going to have your work coming together like perfectly, like a puzzle, right? Because that's what you're doing basically, is every one of the pieces are to fit together properly so that there's no problems. So again, runway, so chain 1, and now you're going to already notice that you did the first part of this, so now you're going to finish off this corner with 3 double crochets in a row. And to finish off the corner, you have to then chain 2 to finish it. So 1 and 2, and now going in, grabbing the material, pulling it through for a slip knot. So through and through, and now you have your corner. So now you can just cast off with this as well, just over your hand. And again, what I do is I just pull it out, and I just wrap it twice around the actual corner piece. So pull it a little bit snug. So just wrap it around twice. And this is called the weaving technique, and I just weave it in top of the top stitches. So just sticking your hook in, grabbing the material, pulling it through, over, and through. And I tend to always go back at least beyond this first gap, no matter what size of square that it is. And I always go around the gaps twice, just like so. And then I just finally finish it off. So what I would do is that if you were assembling all these together, leave the straggler, don't get all anxious and cut it, but now you eventually have it done. And you can see that there's a size difference in between the two of what I just showed you, because the material is actually thinner, so because this one will also be slightly smaller. So it's important that you stay within the same size in order to make this work. So to put these together, you had, remember, if you had 8 in between, you now have 6 right here, and you also have a little bit of extra on the side. So you got 1 here, then 3, that's 4, and then 3 again, and then 1 in the end. So you can pull that a little bit more to give it a little bit of a stretch in order of putting these actually together. So good luck with that, and enjoy this free tutorial brought to you by AllFreeCrochet and Mikey's Mill.